And then here is a rolling shutter. Now, what do you find is odd? Okay, if you see these images, right? If you see this building, what do you notice? You notice that the edge looks a little curved, correct? But you know for a fact that it should have been a straight line. So if you do the rolling shutter correction, it will emerge correctly. See this, see this kind of pillar, whatever, this pillar here that has come out bent. This will happen only if you have a rolling shutter camera. And this is happening because because the camera has moved. The building cannot move, right? So the camera has moved, and therefore it has introduced, sort of what do you call a distortion. This is called a rolling shutter effect, and therefore people have to work on this. This is a very, very important problem. This almost always happens, especially if there is significant motion. Otherwise, you can ignore it. Then motion deblurring, I already talked to you about it. Then a dual lens, right? All these cameras have multiple lenses. What can you do with them? You can get a sense for depth. You can do segmentation, right? You can do some kind of scene understanding, in the sense that you can even tell how many planes there are. For example, if it's an indoor scene, right? You might want to segment it into various different planes. And then there is also called a bokeh rendering. What that means is that only some object of interest can be brought into focus, and then everything else around it is kind of blurred out, so that the person that is looking at the image knows that your focus is on this person and not on whatever is around it. This is something you even observe in a DSLR camera, right? Then motion deblurring and dual lens camera. So all these things are all emerging things. A fair amount of understanding has gone into how these things work and so on. Stabilization is another, and then the third one, right, that I wanted to talk about is robotics. Okay, where in terms of robotics, okay, so it's like saying that if I had a robot that had a camera, right, on it, and then it then needs to have a sense for what is around it, right? So here, what really matters is what is called a depth map. Okay, and this depth map, again, you could acquire through various means, but our interest will be in terms of how do you acquire through pure images. You know that you can also do other kinds of time of flight sensors and so on, but our idea will be how do you do stereo or whatever, right? Are there other cues that one can use? Is it simply stereo, right? You'd be amazed to know that the way so for example, if I just close my eye, right, one of the eyes, not both. If I close one of the eyes, I can still make out who is where, right? So it means that the brain is not just depending on stereo. It's using something else also in order to tell who is where. So all these things so that's what I mean by other cues. Cue means some kind of a clue, right? So robotics. Then let me write down a few more. Then another area, right, where it is very, very useful is what is called remote sensing, and one of the mini projects will be on this. We'll ask you to do some kind of image segmentation. So one of the main things is what is called image segmentation. See, although right, we may not look at a consumer camera per se, or we may not look at an astronomical image per se, but there are many of these things, okay, which I'm mentioning here. You would hopefully end up, not all of them, but you will end up doing many of these, okay, with okay, during the assignment or say otherwise. Remote sensing, segmentation. Then another area is, of course, biometrics. So you would have heard about face, of course. Then iris. This is something that you have all heard about. Fingerprint. And then anything else that you've heard about? Fingerprint. I heard about palm. People use palm. People use ears. What else? People use gait. Gait. Gait means simply the way you walk. And it's a very, very important sort of a cue. Apparently, why apparently, right? You can actually make out that it's your friend, right? You have to see your friend's face to know it's your friend. Most of the time, no. If he's walking along the corridor, yeah, right, our chap is going there. How do you say that? Okay, that's because you have a sense for the guy. He has a unique way of walking. Right? Each fellow is kind of unique. You should watch this. When you walk down the corridor, just watch how each person walks. It's very interesting. So gait is another thing, and especially gait is very useful if you have to identify somebody from far, when the face and other cues will be a failure, because you have to zoom in, and then if you zoom in, right, you have to really zoom in, or maybe it doesn't even show your face to you. Okay, then there is a medical imaging. So yeah, as you would understand, it's again a very, very important problem, right? Medical imaging, especially Okay, what is called super resolution. As I say, right, there isn't anything super about super resolution. Simply means that you have to be able to build a high resolution picture given a low resolution picture. And then imaging, the medical imaging people do what is called compressive sensing. Okay, this is not the same as compression. Right? Compression means you actually take in a lot of data, then you start to trim. Compressive sensing means you only sense as much as you want. Right? Don't sense too much and then start to chop. Okay, so image compression, and so on. Then surveillance. Right? I mean, this is again interesting. We all find these cameras all around. On the roads as you travel, there are these cameras. I always think that they're all dumb cameras in the sense that, I mean, they don't seem to be doing anything intelligent. But at least, right, they're at least giving you data, and then somebody at the back end should be actually doing something. But then I've seen in airports, for example, Madras itself has about, I think, 2,000 odd of these cameras. Madras airport. You wouldn't have noticed it. But then, in all this, there is some kind of a control room where somebody is sitting there and watching all this, right? It's sad for that chap. He has to be looking at, when something will go wrong. Right? So in such cases, surveillance, so what is called, but now, there are advanced imaging techniques that can tell, when something is unattended, a baggage is lying unattended for a long time, so an alarm can be flagged and so on, so that somebody can then, take appropriate action. So there are many algorithms that come around this. One of the other things, right, that is very, very relevant is what is called a change finding. What that means is something, okay, which you took, let us say, right, a month ago of some scene, and then after a month you come back, and then you take another image. What can happen is it may not be the same camera. The first time you took it with some other camera, and then the second time you don't probably have the same camera. Secondly, you're not probably, it's impossible to be exactly at the same location, right? I might have taken a classroom image today, as of today, and then tomorrow I come back, I may take it from here. Okay, so in such cases, you want to know what is the real change. You can't directly subtract the images because the viewpoint is not the same. And you want to know exactly has something changed. And this is all very important for, let's say, war times and so on. Even, let's say, without a war, there are always these satellite images that keep sending images of certain very, 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 very sensitive regions. So it's like saying that, you could have several army trucks sitting inside some place, and your satellite image shows that there's no activity. But then suddenly you find that there's that activity, trucks are coming out, and it means that something is going on, right? So change is such a fundamental thing. The only problem with change is that, what is a change is not clear. For example, what I'm saying is these are all very, very, if you really sit back and think about it, these are very interesting topics, because, for example, if there is a snow, okay, and then if you capture a video, and suppose through the snow there is a car moving, for you a change is probably the car, right? That's the main thing that you would consider as a change. But then if you have an algorithm that may simply say that, the snow itself was heavy at that time, lighter at this time, so therefore all that is change. Okay, again, what really do you mean by a real change and so on? So that way, there's a lot of work, into what do you really mean by change. But for us, right, we'll simply keep it simple. For us, change is like something between two images you compare, and then, okay, you want to be able to see what kind of changes are there. Then going further, so all these are applications, okay, where this is being used. Then there is a digital heritage. Okay, this is again something interesting. A digital heritage. What this means is, one of the things that that is frequently done is, you can give a virtual walkthrough, for example, of some of these heritage sites, or you can even do what is called in-painting damaged structures and so on. Okay, in-painting damaged structures, you may end up doing a virtual walkthrough and so on, right? So what is called an immersive experience, right? So you should be able to feel as to how, right? What does it mean to be in a place like that? Now, I'll show you a few examples of this, and then something else that is underwater. Okay, all that I said until now is all on the surface. Right? You have a camera on the surface, you're capturing everything on the surface, but what about the whole thing that is underwater? Okay, there's a whole area on that, what is called underwater imaging, and then none of these things that you use, none of your algorithms that you've done for the surface things, right? You can't simply take them and then apply them underwater, because underwater, the way the attenuation happens is a function of the wavelength. Right? Red is the one which will get attenuated the most. Right? So when you see an underwater picture, you'll typically see that it has a bluish tinge, a greenish tinge. Seldom will you see a reddish tinge. Right? Simply because it's all function of the wavelength and so on. And therefore, underwater imaging, right, people try to use what is called a color correction algorithms, what is called non-uniform illumination handling. So many things. Again, that's important because you have a light source. Typically, as you go underwater, right, after about maybe a few tens of feet, the sunlight you can't even see it. Right? I mean, it won't even come in. So beyond that, you have to use your own source. When you use your own source, right, so it will try to highlight whatever is in the front, and then something that is away will all start to look dim. So this non-uniform lighting, okay, something that let's say people have been working on. This is not to say relevant only for underwater. This is also important for let's say for indoor scenes and so on. But I'm saying underwater imaging people are always facing issues with non-uniform lighting. Then finally, there is something called industrial applications. And before I talk about this, I'll just show you a few slides on what the earlier ones that I actually mentioned happen to be like. So let's go back to that PPT and okay, oops, what happened? Okay, so robotics. Okay, I didn't show you an example, right? So it's like this: you capture a pair of images. Okay, this is called a stereo pair, and you want to be able to build a depth map, right? A depth map wherein each intensity in this image will tell you whether an object is farther off from the camera or is it actually closer. Again, these are not solved problems, especially when there is no scene texture. For example, if you have very smooth wall like this and all, it will struggle because these things try to match features, and when there are no features, they will struggle. Okay, so it's not like these are solved yet. I'll talk about what issues are typically involved, especially right if you have a light source that is creating specularity and so on, you will have issues. Okay, then there is something called structure from motion, which is like taking a camera and trying to move around with it, and then try to build a kind of a point cloud of the scene of your 3D object. Then remote sensing I mentioned is like a segmentation problem where you want to tell what is what. Something is water, something is garden, something is some other structure, a building, and all this. Right? You want to be able to label them. This is more like a labeling problem. Right? You have n number of labels, and you want to assign to each of these image intensities. You want to tell to which label, right? Should that actually belong. Then biometrics, I already said, gait is one thing. Okay, this depends on the way people walk. This is typically a dynamic thing. Gait is never like a static thing. You can't take one picture and then start talking about gait. So gait is typically a dynamic activity. Then face, of course, you all know. Okay, this is face recognition, not from my lab. Okay, obviously. Okay, this is something taken from the net. And then this is another. When you do face recognition, again there are several other issues that come up. This is like different camera poses, different illumination, different expression. Then blur. This is from my lab. Okay. Again, occlusion, motion blur, illumination, and all that. These are all students, right, that have done wonderful work in the past. Biometrics, iris. They're all. I'm just showing these examples so that fingerprint again. Okay, this is again unique. I mean, what do you think in this fingerprint do they sense? I've shown a fingerprint. No. What do you think they sense there in order to tell who is who? How do they get a nail a guy and say, hey, you are this guy? How do they do that? What do you see in that image that actually tells you? Curvature, yeah, but there are kind of curves. Yeah, curvature, yes, but there is something more unique than that. Can you spot those? See this guy? See this fork here? This is called a fork. See, I don't know whether you can make out there. See here, see this thing? There is a kind of a triangle, right? There are three arms meeting here. Okay, if you zoom into that image, you will know that's a fork. Okay, and then for some people they will have islands. Then the forks mutual angles, the kind of mutual angles they make with each other. Then see there is another fork. Then how these forks are right interspaced within somebody's. And then there is some people have islands. They'll have circles in the middle. I don't know whether see here. Okay, that's an island. So all these things these are called minutiae. They're called minutiae, and these are the things that actually nail a person. Not so much the angle of this bend and all that. It's just typically 8-10 points. But they are the ones, they are the ones that really tell who's who. It's interesting, right? Biometry, okay, well, here again, you can, well, anyway, right? When you have time, just go through these images and you'll get a feel for what I'm saying. Surveillance, like I said, okay, you might want to tell what is happening, what is changing in a scene, and then and then change becomes even more hard when you have a camera that's actually moving. Right, a still camera, it's easy to tell what has changed. Suppose I fix a camera here, somebody comes in, gets out, I know something is going on. But suppose the camera itself moves, then it makes it a complicated problem. Then change, right here, for example, between these two images, what has changed? Only this. But if you notice, the intensities are not the same, right, and you still want to be able to pick exactly what has changed. So all this, again here, right, the viewpoint is not the same. See, the way this has been captured, these two images do not have the same viewpoint. And you want to be still able to, and also notice that this is slightly blurred. This picture is slightly blurred as compared to this, and you still want to actually pick out what has changed. Then this is a rolling shutter effect, right? So when you took the picture with a still camera, right, these lines are all lines. When you took it with a moving camera, of course there is this van that has come in, which is a change. But then you also notice that this guy has become bent now. Now, if you just subtract, even if your camera, right, even if you say that the camera motion is very small, therefore can I just go ahead and subtract? What will happen is, it will say that somebody relayed this bar. You will think that somebody actually changed the bar itself, which is wrong. What has changed is only this guy. So what you have to do is you have to find out what is the camera motion that has happened, and then kind of warp the images such that only whatever has actually changed should emerge as a change. Other things should not be construed as a change. So again, all these are interesting effects. Then, okay, this is something else. Medical imaging, this is what I mean by super resolution. You have an image, right, you have a camera, let's say, that has a low quality. All of us, right, would like to buy a cheap camera, right? We all like this word, cheap, okay, because it makes sense. I don't have to spend too much money, but then you also suffer because the images are of a low quality. And then if you had an algorithm that would actually pick those low resolution images, give you a high resolution, you would like it. All of us would love that, right? So here is that. Here is an example like that. Here is another example for the medical imaging. Then heritage. This is Hampi. How many of you have been to Hampi? Nobody? Okay. So okay, two of them have been to Hampi, and so we had a DST project on this. So the idea was that if you go to Hampi, right, all those rocks are beautiful. The way those sculptures all have been made. But then unfortunately, right, due to some act of vandalism, people have actually broken so what has happened is, see, for example, here, right, the whole shoulder is broken, okay, and then here the whole this entire structure, which is like a banister, is broken. Similarly, something is broken here. So here, so the idea is that can you do something in order to be able to show these, in order to be able to fill these regions. That's called in painting. Okay, so it's not like you go and fill it up there because it's a UNESCO heritage site. You can't do anything there. But you capture these images and then you try to visualize how this might have looked like had it not been broken. Okay, that's what I mean by a virtual walkthrough. So you might be able to give people a sense for some of these images. I'll show you. Because we have these things, that we actually build as a 3D model by inside the campus. Okay, this is like a 3D printer. So you actually build this 3D model, you fill it up all algorithmically, then you print a 3D model so that you get a sense for how that filling has happened and so on. So again, this is a very, very important problem. Similarly, you can also, it doesn't just apply to broken structures. Even structures that are good, you can take images today and give people and kind of store it, right, forever. Because even tomorrow, if something else happens, right, nature's fury, whatever, you'll still have all of that intact with you for the future. And then underwater imaging, right? So here you see that. Let me see if this video plays. Okay, so you see, so if you were to drop this is an aquarium in my lab. So if you drop a stone, okay, and there is an eye chart which is kept at the bottom of the aquarium. So you see that, right, there is a skew effect. You see the last frame. This gives you a feel for what happens to those alphabets. Okay, so when there is water, motion of the water, even though the underlying thing is still, but then when there's flowing water, it will create what is called a skewing effect. And the idea is that how do you actually de-skew and so on. Okay, that is like underwater imaging. And finally, industrial applications are many. There are many. Okay, especially what is called inspection and so on.